Okay, so we just finished up talking about fiber in our last lecture. So what we're going to do is we're going to move forward into talking about our micronutrients. So we talked about the macronutrients, which were everything that provide us energy. So fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. And so we're going to talk about our micro nutrients. So these we need to consume less of per day than we did our macronutrients. What do you think are some of our micronutrients? What do you think we're going to be talking about with micronutrients? I do need you guys to answer. So breads. Um, those are considered a carbohydrate. So we kind of already talked about those in our macronutrients. What are some other things that we may need that we don't consume large amounts of on a daily basis? We sometimes forget about our micronutrients. Yeah, things like minerals. So sodium is a mineral. That's right. So we're actually not going to start with minerals. We're actually going to start with our vitamins. Exactly. So vitamins. There are 13 vitamins that we actually need to consume on, we say a daily basis, but really just as we go through time, we need to be consuming these at a regular interval. If you miss a vitamin one day, it's not a big deal as long as you get a little bit more of it the next day. Typically, when we look at our vitamins, we talk about how many milligrams you need each day. And there are 13 different vitamins that we classify into two categories. We have fat soluble vitamins and we have water soluble vitamins. Our fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K, or ADEC. And so vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K are all fat soluble, meaning that they dissolve in fat. And so this is an important fact to know because if you consume your fat soluble vitamins and there isn't fat present in the stomach, your body actually cannot absorb these. So it's really important that when we consume these particular vitamins, that we have fat in that particular, when we're consuming them, that there's some kind of fat involved. Now, if we consume these vitamins naturally found in foods, this usually isn't a problem because the places where they're found typically already contain fat. However, that being said, sometimes they don't, and sometimes people may choose to use something like a vitamin supplement, like a multivitamin. And so it's really important that if you take these in a multivitamin, that you get them, that you're eating fat with that. So if you take a multivitamin first thing in the morning, a lot of people drink that with water and may not eat a meal with it, and they wouldn't absorb these particular vitamins. And so they would need to drink something maybe like milk with it if they weren't going to eat in order to have fat for those to be able to dissolve and absorb into the digestive system. So someone asked, are those the ones we need to eat before we take them? So do you mean, do we need to take these vitamins that we need to eat before we take them? I'm just trying to clarify the question. Could you clarify, maybe turn on your mic and just ask it?
Yeah, so what I'm asking is basically like, say you have them in like vitamin form, like in a bottle, do you need to eat before you like ingest them?
Gotcha. So if you were taking them in a vitamin, you could eat before you took them, like right before, or you could even eat after. It doesn't matter either way. It will take some time for them to get through the digestive system. We just need to make sure that kind of as we consume them, that we eat something with fat in them. So it could be before or after. It doesn't have to be a full meal. It could be something as simple as a glass of milk with a vitamin would provide enough fat for those to dissolve in. And so that's a good question for sure. So it doesn't matter either way. And so again, those fat soluble are A, D, E, and K. Our water soluble vitamins are the other 9 of them, and they are vitamin C and vitamin B. Now, water soluble vitamins dissolve in water. So we always have water in our stomach with stomach acid. There's a lot of water in it. So this isn't a concern about what we eat with them. And so we're looking at those particular things. So they're not as worrisome about when we get them or what we have in our stomach with them. They're easier to absorb. And so we have vitamin C, but you may be doing the math and you're like, wait a second, you said there's 13, but there's only adds up to be 6. Well, realize if it's not a fat soluble vitamin and it's not vitamin C, so if it's not A, D, E, or K and it's not vitamin C, it is a B vitamin. So there are 8 different B vitamins that you must consume um, in order for your body to function normally. Now, you may be familiar with hearing about different types of B vitamins. There's things like B12, B8, B6. All of these are different vitamins. They're all B vitamins. There are different types of them. So you may have heard them by different names like folic acid or niacin, things like that. When it comes to this class in particular, I don't need you to know all different 8 B vitamins and what their exact names are and things like that. That's well beyond the scope of this course. I just need you to know if you were to see a list of them, you know that E, D, E, K, and C are all vitamins, and also everything else must be a B vitamin. So if you saw a question that kind of was like, which of the following is not a vitamin? Well, if you saw 2 or 3 different types of B vitamins, just go ahead and know that every B vitamin that I would list or talk about in this course would be a true B vitamin. And so that's kind of what we want you guys to remember there. All 13 are important, but they all have different functions. Do you guys know what vitamins do in our body? Like, what are some examples like of things they may assist with or help happen in our body? Like, why are vitamins important for us? What role do they play?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so our vitamins, they're important for our body, but what role do they play? What do they actually do for us? What are the functions of vitamins?
Um, they help, like, just depends on like specific ones. I know that vitamin C is for like immune system. B, I think, is for body function as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, it's just kind of looking at those things. So yeah, you're right. Vitamin C helps with our immune system. Now, it doesn't taking large doses of vitamin C um, for the average person isn't going to make your immune system way stronger. So right now we've got COVID-19 going around. You consuming, 10,000 times your daily amount of vitamin C isn't going to make you any stronger. But if you don't have enough of it, it definitely can make it weaker. Um, some of our vitamins help with like our hair and our teeth development. Vitamin A is associated with helping to keep healthy eyes. Vitamin D helps with stronger bones. So they serve a wide variety of functions in the body. All of them do some different things. Um, and so we want to realize that, but we also want to realize that vitamins don't provide us with energy directly. They may help that process out a little bit, but they're not actually giving you energy. You could consume 100 pounds worth of vitamin C, and there are 0 calories in that vitamin. So it's kind of a weird concept to think. Like, you could eat 100 pounds of vitamin C and there are 0 calories in it, meaning it's not giving us energy directly. And so we do have to realize that they're not giving us energy, but that doesn't mean they're not important. We find these vitamins in a wide variety of foods, and this is why we recommend that as you eat, that you eat a wide variety of foods on a pretty regular basis. So eating different fruits and vegetables and grains and meats and dairy products are all going to help make sure that you get all of these vitamins. And a diet that is just you eating a variety of different foods in throughout the day or throughout your kind of week, if you think about it, eating a wide variety of foods and not eating too much of any one of them is a good way to make sure you get all of your vitamins, and also making sure you eat foods that look different as far as color or things like that. So um, don't always just eat green vegetables like lettuce and broccoli. You want to eat yellow ones and orange ones and purple ones, because each of those contain different types of vitamins. We can also even make some of our vitamin, or actually just one of our vitamins. Do you guys know what particular vitamin we can make without consuming it? So we had A, we had K, so not quite. It's actually vitamin D. Vitamin D we can actually create without having to consume it. And so the way that your body creates vitamin D is actually when you go out into the sun. So today it's kind of a sunny day. If you were to walk outside with a little bit of exposed skin, kind of think if you're wearing shorts and a short sleeve t-shirt, your body, once that your skin starts being exposed to the sun, will actually start producing vitamin D. So you can actually experience what it's like to be a plant. A plant produces energy through photosynthesis, exposing the sun. When you go out into the sun, you produce vitamin D. And so we actually don't have to consume vitamin D. Spending, 20, 30 minutes outside each day or throughout the day will usually produce enough vitamin D where we don't have to worry about it. We wouldn't have to worry about actually consuming it. And so that's a cool thing. We do know that you can consume vitamins through a multivitamin each day. Different types of supplements is what we call them. Realize that the issue with a few of those things are the fact that supplements, that whole category of supplements, including vitamins and minerals, are not regulated by the FDA. So just because it says it has something in it, it may not contain that product, or it may contain more of it or less of it than it says on that package. It may have things in it that aren't listed on the packaging. And so this can be a little bit worrisome when it comes to it. And so we want to kind of look at those things and be aware of that. We also know that the body can't absorb as many vitamins that are in multivitamins. Our body has trouble absorbing that many, so a lot of it just goes to waste. And vitamins are not very are not very cheap. They're kind of expensive for what they are. And we know typically vitamins consumed in a supplement style way tend to not be quite as effective as consuming them through our diet as we go throughout. So we do want to try to get them through the foods that we eat and not just taking a multivitamin each day. But sometimes it's a way to start as we are working on our nutrition to work our way up to take those. Realize with our vitamins, we can get excesses of them and we can be deficient in them. So excesses means we consume too much. Deficiencies are when we consume too little. Typically in America and usually across most of the world, we are much more likely to have deficiencies. So where we don't consume enough of a vitamin or all of our vitamins than we are to have excesses of them. If we consume too much of our water-soluble vitamins, if we have healthy kidneys, this isn't too much of an issue because we will simply urinate out vitamin C and vitamin B. So if you've ever taken something like Emergen-C, one of those emergency packets where it's a powder you put in a drink and it gives you like 10,000 times your daily amount of vitamin C, those things cost, a few dollars a packet. Realize when you drink those that your body can't use all that vitamin C. And so 99.9% of that product that you consumed actually will just be urinated out. You're just going to make some really expensive urine when you consume those. So it's not a good idea to consume them because if you have bad kidneys, they can build up in your system. If you have good kidneys, you're just wasting things. You're throwing good money into the toilet. And if you want to throw good money into the toilet, by all means, just mail it to me. I'll take it off your hands, no problem. Our fat-soluble ones are a little bit easier to consume in excess. Typically, the way this happens is if someone only eats like one food, they may do that, or if people are taking more than one multivitamin a day. So most multivitamins, you take one a day. And if you start taking two each day, thinking it's going to help you to be better and healthier, these could build up in your system and they store in your fat, and they're really hard to get rid of. So someone asked if the Flintstone vitamins are legit. I took those as a kid. I remember them. They were tasty and delicious. So most vitamins are pretty decent. They do serve a purpose and they're good, especially in kids, especially if they have trouble eating a variety of foods and we're trying to work them up to that. And they are legit, and most vitamins are, but again, we would just rather you consume those through a wide variety of foods than taking that multivitamin. And so that's a good question. They can be useful. It's not like they're bad, that they're going to kill you necessarily. They're just not regulated, so they can not always be 100% truthful. And again, they're just not as effective as eating them through a wide variety of foods. But sometimes for kids, it's definitely we want to give them those Flintstone vitamins because it just helps kind of continue to make sure they have everything they need as they're learning to eat in a better way. So that's a great question. Deficiencies are the other way. We're more likely to see these, and these are simply when we don't get enough, and so a multivitamin might be helpful in that. Realize with deficiencies, they can cause health problems. If you don't get enough vitamin C, you can develop scurvy, which used to happen to sailors back in several hundred years ago. People that sailed on boats might not have access to vitamin C, which is found high in oranges and lemons, and they would develop scurvy. And so they would start carrying these on boats to help prevent this. If you don't get enough vitamin K, this could actually help or hurt clotting of your blood, and so it may be harder for your blood to clot without vitamin K. Or vitamin D might make this condition of weak bones called the rickets in children. So really important for us to look at those and make sure we're getting enough of them each day. So related to this vitamins, we also want to talk about minerals. Minerals are other kind of micronutrient that we want to talk about. And so when it comes to minerals, these are typically things we think about found on the periodic table of elements. Not all of them are, but a lot of them what you could actually find on the periodic table of elements. They're minerals we need to consume that help us in our daily functions. Again, they don't provide us with energy directly, but we do know that they are helpful. So there are 17 different minerals that we talk about consuming that you have to consume on a daily basis or close thereto. And we divide them up into two categories. We have trace minerals and major minerals. What do you guys think the difference is between trace minerals and major minerals are?
Are trace minerals like minerals in small quantities or like small minerals?
Yeah, so exactly right. So trace minerals we need less of each day than we do major minerals. Typically, when we look at major minerals, we're talking about needing more than about 100 milligrams per day, where trace minerals need less than 100 milligrams per day. And some of our trace minerals, we need what we call picograms, which is a really, really small measurement. Like we need very, very little of them each day, but without them, it could be a major thing. So trace minerals, we need just very little amounts each day. Major minerals, we need a little bit more of each day. So it really is talking about consumption. So what are some different minerals that you guys think of? Like when I'm saying minerals that we need to consume, what are you thinking about? Like what's a mineral that we need to consume? So iron is one.
Potassium.
Potassium, yep. What else?
Magnesium,
Yep, magnesium.
calcium,
Yep. Sodium, yep.
phosphorus.
Phosphorus is one. We've got zinc. So there are a lot of them out there. And so we say a lot of them. There are 17 of them out there, actually, to be exact. And some of them we're a little bit more familiar with. A lot of people think of things like calcium and sodium and iron. Zinc, sometimes people don't think about. We also have things like potassium. Of some of the ones you guys have listed, which ones do you think are major minerals?
Magnesium or potassium?
So potassium is, sodium is, so calcium is a major mineral. One that sometimes surprises people is iron is actually a trace mineral. We don't need that much iron, but we all know that it's really important. With our minerals, again, we say that if you eat a wide variety of foods that you're going to get most of these. And you can get them in the form of like a multivitamin. A lot of vitamins also contain minerals, but they're better to get in our daily diets, that type of thing. And they serve all different kinds of functions. And we can also get too little or too much of each of our vitamins. Again, typically we think of getting too little of most of our vitamins. That's the biggest thing that we see. So if you get too little iron, it could cause a condition called anemia, which is where you have trouble carrying oxygen on your blood. This can be a condition people have naturally with that, even if they do get enough iron, but it can be caused or led to if you're not getting enough. So people with anemia already really have to make sure they get enough iron. What particular mineral, if you didn't get enough of it, would lead to something called osteoporosis or a weakening of the bones?
Is that calcium?
Yeah, that would be calcium. So we know that calcium is really good at helping to keep your bones nice and strong. And so there's all different things with our minerals. There is, however, one mineral that people tend to get too much of. It's the one out of all of the vitamins and minerals that we talk about that we're actually is the only one that we're really concerned on an average basis people get too much of. What mineral do you think people usually consume too much of, especially here in America?
Iron?
Not
Sodium?
It is sodium. So sodium is the one we usually get too much of, and think about that in our salt. Salt is technically sodium chloride that we put on our food, and so we typically get too much of that sodium, and that can lead to things like high blood pressure. Any questions so far? Or is everyone doing pretty good? Awesome. So with that, we've kind of covered our micronutrients, but there are still some other things we've talked about. There's actually one thing that's really, really important that we haven't mentioned at all in this particular course. What is one thing that you have to consume on a pretty regular basis or you would die, but we haven't really talked about so far? Think about your body is like 2/3 to 3/4 of this particular substance. Yes, water. So we want to talk about other things you need to consume, and water is one of them. We can't forget water. It's super, super important that we consume water. And so the question that a lot of people sometimes wonder is, how much water do we need to consume? Um, and you guys may have an idea of how much water you should consume. There are all kinds of people out there that may say 8 cups of water a day, to some people say a gallon of water each day. And there's all these different guesses on how much water we need. And the true answer is it simply depends. It's really person to person. How much water I need each day is going to be different than how much water you need each day. And realize how much water I need today might be different than how much water I need tomorrow, especially as the weather changes. So if I sit inside all day today and don't really move a whole lot, well, I might not need a lot of water today. I might not need to consume much because I haven't lost a whole lot. But if tomorrow I go outside and I go for, let's say, a run, I run 3 miles outside tomorrow and it's 90 degrees outside, well, I very well am probably going to need more water tomorrow than I needed today. So there's no real set measurement for how much water you need each day. We just know it's important and that you need to consume it through drinking water, but also through the foods we consume have water in them. So an apple has a lot of water in it. And so we need to keep these things in mind. So typically what we say is if you were to look at the color of your urine every time you go pee, if your urine is clear to a slight yellow, then you're getting enough water at that particular time. And so you're doing a good job. If your urine starts to turn a brighter yellow or even to a darker yellow, we definitely say that you need to consume more water. You're getting dehydrated. And if your urine is a color of like sweet tea or Coke or something like that, you are extremely dehydrated and you just need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the hospital to have them deal with that. But simply looking at the color of your urine can help you know if you're getting enough water each day. And it definitely is something important. We also have this thing called antioxidants. Antioxidants are out there, and a lot of you may have heard about them. And you guys have probably heard that antioxidants are good for you, that there are something that you should be consuming. But a lot of people don't know why. They just hear antioxidants and know that they should be consuming them. So what are antioxidants and what are they doing for us? How much should we consume? Well, a lot of those things are out there. So first of all, antioxidants, there's no real true measurement to an antioxidant. There's no way for anyone to calculate like how much antioxidant is in this particular product. You won't see that on a food label of this many milligrams. And you're not going to hear anyone say how much you need to consume of it each day. It's just something like people are like, okay, we know that it's good for you and you should be consuming it, but we don't know how much. We don't know exactly how that measurement goes and how to put that on packaging. And the reason that antioxidants are seen as a good thing is they get rid of something called a free radical. Okay. And so you're like, well, what is a free radical? Well, think about a free radical as something that kind of gets loose in the body and causes damage over time. So typically, a free radical is thought about as like an oxygen molecule. So think about the oxygen you breathe in. Sometimes an oxygen molecule just kind of gets away from, gets loose in the body and is just able to kind of bounce around and cause damage. So think about a free radical as like a super bouncy ball, like you get from a vending machine as a kid, like those bouncy balls, like you pop them on the floor and they bounce real high. Think about if we were in as a class, we were in a classroom with the door closed and no windows open, and you guys were all sitting there, and I was standing up front, and I had a bucket full of super bouncy balls, and I just took one at a time and I threw it at the room at random. Like I'm blindfolded and I just throw the ball in the room at random as hard as I can. Well, the first few times that bouncy ball is going to bounce across the room. It's going to hit the ceiling, hit the floor, hit the wall, bounce around, and maybe everyone in that room is perfectly fine. It didn't hit anybody. Well, that's great. But think about if I throw ball after ball after ball, eventually somebody in that classroom is going to get hit with that bouncy ball. And it may cause a little bit of damage or it may cause a lot of damage. It might just hit someone in the leg, or it might hit someone and give them a bloody nose. Well, that's what a free radical is. It bounces around, and it sometimes causes damage, sometimes not a lot. Other times it causes them a good bit of damage. And these can lead to problems over time. Well, what antioxidants are is they get rid of those free radicals. It would be the equivalent of me in that classroom where I'm bouncing this bouncy ball around, giving each person in that room a fishing net. And so now as I throw the bouncy balls in the room, you guys get to try to capture them with your net. Well, for every free radical or every bouncy ball that you catch in your net, well, that gets rid of it out of this chaos and allows the body to be safer where less people are going to get injured from them. And so this is the concept of antioxidants and why we should consume them. We don't really have a measurement of how much is in food, but we know things like blueberries and pomegranates and things like that are really high in antioxidants, and that we should consume those as part of our diet on a decently regular basis. And so antioxidants can kind of be considered in this group of what we call phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are things that are found in our foods that provide us with additional benefits. There are a whole bunch of different phytochemicals out there in different types of foods. And phytochemicals aren't things we have to consume. If you don't get them, it's not like, that you're going to have some disease or something's going to happen. We just know that if you eat foods with phytochemicals in them, you're going to see additional benefits from those foods. So phytochemicals can help you maybe feel like you have better energy, or maybe help you with your immune system, or help prevent cancers, or do all different kinds of things. And so phytochemicals are just simply good things in our food that help us in some way. You don't need to know all of them out there. You don't need to know what they all do and what foods they're found in. We just want to point this out so that you know that as you eat a wide variety of foods throughout your day, week, life, that you're going to see additional benefits from those. And that's why we really encourage eating so many different types of foods and not eating the same thing over and over again, because we know there are additional benefits seen in each of those foods as we consume them. And so these are kind of what we've covered now, all the things that we consume, that we look at consuming that are beneficial for our body. And so this is a good thing. And so where we want to move at this point is we want to talk about a little bit of the science behind what we eat and how that has been determined. And so what we look at for that is we look at these things called the dietary reference intakes, or the DRIs. The dietary reference intakes, or the DRIs, is a general term for 4 nutritional standards. And this is the science behind how we figure out what we need to eat. And so people are always doing research on food and what it has in it and how it affects the body. And there's all kinds of information out there on most foods and the things we talked about, from micro and macronutrients to phytochemicals. And so under this DRIs, this dietary reference intakes, there are 4 nutritional standards that kind of let us know how much we know about the particular things we eat. So it's kind of think of it like from an A to a D scale. A means we know a ton about this particular thing in our diet or in nutrition, and we can tell you kind of what you need to eat and how much you need to eat no matter what's going on in your life. This would be an example that has an A kind of grading, would be something like your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. where other information we might not know as much about. And so it gets a lower kind of rating, lower kind of term that tells us we know some information, but not as much. And then some things like our phytochemicals might not have a very high, like the nutritional standard we use is very low because, well, we just don't know that much information about it because it's kind of newer to the nutrition game. And so all this is there, and this is really good for developing eating plans and things like that. But these things can be thousands and thousands of pages worth of information that you would have to dig through in order to figure out what to eat. And that doesn't do the average person a lot of good. The dietary reference intakes are good for people that do research and professionals, but for your average student or average person, they don't want to read all of that. And so what the DRIs do is we take all that information and we use them to produce your daily values. And these are easier to read. And this is what we put on food labels. When you look at a food label and you see that you eat this product and you get 20% of your daily amount of sodium, well, that came from these DRIs, these dietary reference intakes, and the fact that an average person needs to consume about 2,000 calories each and every day. And so that's what happens with these DRIs. Also, with the dietary reference intakes, we say that someone who, the average person who doesn't have any kind of medical condition, if they eat a diet that is kind of eats a variety of foods and not too much of any one food, they very rarely need supplements. Supplements are not needed for most people because you can get that through your diet. And also, supplements aren't regulated. We talked about this before. The FDA doesn't regulate these supplements. And so the only people that we 100% recommend taking maybe a daily vitamin or something like that are people over the age of 50. As your body gets older, it gets harder for it to process nutrients. And so people over the age of 50, we recommend a multivitamin to help them out. People who smoke, and this is smoking anything from tobacco to e-cigarettes and vapes to marijuana to oregano leaves. We know that when you smoke something, it introduces chemicals into the blood that cause damage and make it hard for vitamins and minerals to be absorbed. And so we simply say anyone who smokes needs to consume a supplement. And then pregnant women and those wanting to become pregnant need to consume prenatal vitamins because there are certain things that a baby needs a lot of and a mom needs a lot of to keep them healthy. And it's just very hard to get those through even a well-balanced diet. It's hard to get all of those. And so we recommend prenatal vitamins. And so these are kind of the exceptions to that rule. Any questions so far? Is that kind of making sense on where that's headed and what we're talking about there? Yeah, thank you. So what we want to talk about is realize everything we've talked about so far in this class is actually meant for everyone in the entire world for the most part. Like everyone can follow the dietary reference intakes. It doesn't matter who you are out of the 7.5 billion people on the earth. This all is pretty much the same information. But realize as Americans, we have some different things sometimes to worry about or focus on a little bit more than other people. And so we have the dietary guidelines for Americans. And this is kind of the recommendations for the average American. It doesn't mean that each and every one of you is always going to have these exact same things going on. But on average, as Americans, these are our issues. And they're really shocking. They're surprising when you read them. First of all, the dietary guidelines for Americans say that we need to be more active and adopt better eating habits, kind of as a general statement. It says that we consume way too much fat, added sugars, and sodium. So I don't think that really surprised anyone. And this one took me for a loop when I first learned it. As Americans, on average, we don't consume enough fruits, veggies, whole grains, and low-fat dairy. So we need to consume dairy. It needs to be the low-fat version because we're getting too much of that fat already. And so these are kind of the recommendations that were there. And there are some things that have happened in order to help us as we move forward as Americans. These things have happened over a number of years and are still occurring. And so changes have happened like local policies on food. They're not only trying to do it at a federal level, but they're trying to get individuals or smaller governments or state governments or city governments to enact policies that encourage healthy eating habits or better dietary habits. An example of this might be the fact that in New York State, you can no longer buy, I think it's like a 32-ounce drink from a fast food joint. So their idea was to cut down on, these added sugars by making it where you couldn't get a drink that was above a certain size. We've also seen changes in retail food. The biggest change we've seen in retail food, so think about retail food as like fast food restaurants and sit-down restaurants. Typically what we have seen over the last number of years is the fact that more and more places are now putting the calorie counts on menus. And this is a big thing because it gives you more information to make healthier decisions. There's a law now where if you have, I think, more than 10 of a 10 of the exact same kind of restaurant or fast food chain, you have to have calorie counts on the menu where people can read them and see them. And where this doesn't always change your mind, it may change your mind occasionally. I remember the first time I saw this, it was at a place called Zaxby's. You guys may have actually eaten there. It's a chicken kind of place. There's chicken fingers and fries. And I would go to Zaxby's, and my favorite thing to get at Zaxby's was I went there on a decently regular basis, like Sundays after church or whatever, was on the way home. And I would get a wings and things, which had fries and chicken tenders and some wings in it. And it was just a good meal. And I would get that and I would eat that for lunch and not think about it. And then one day I walked in and they had changed the menu and had calorie counts. And I walked up to the register and I was like, can I have the wheat? And I stopped mid-sentence because on the menu was the calorie count. And on the meal that I was about to get, this wings and things meal, legitimately on the menu said that it contained about 2,000 calories. That's as many calories as I need in a single day. And I would eat that at lunch and also eat breakfast and dinner that day as well. And that's a big thing when you start to see that. It makes you make better decisions. And that day I walked up and I said, I guess I'll get the salad. And it was really hard for me to say because I just don't eat salads. But it was there and it made me make a better decision. And so it just gives us that information. A lot of you guys have been in school more recently than I have, but school food changed. School food, it may not be, I hear a lot of students say that it got worse. School food is really hard because you have to make sure that kids get the appropriate nutrition and calories in through eating a meal, but they're also having to cook for a few hundred, if not 1,000 students each and every day for a meal or two each day. And so that makes it really hard. And they're trying. I'm not saying it's always great and that it always works perfect, but it is something to kind of consider and look at, that they're trying these things. And sometimes that's the bigger thing is that they're trying. We've seen the limiting of marketing to children. So if you think about it, the last time that you saw like a McDonald's or a commercial for McDonald's, it was probably talking about the healthy options for kid meals like apple slices or milk, or it was talking about the options for adults. When I was a kid, there were all kinds of commercials from every fast food restaurant trying to get you to go there and basically encouraging kids to come and ask their parents to go to these places. And it wasn't encouraging the food. Those marketing strategies were all about the toy in the McDonald's Happy Meal. I remember seeing those commercials about, oh, they've got Hot Wheels this week, or they've got Beanie Babies, or whatever it is. And you're trying to ask your parents to go, and it's not allowing them to make the best decision for their kids. Their kids are wanting to go there, not because of the food, but because of the toy. And so we've seen that limited marketing. You don't see the Kool-Aid Man much anymore, Toucan Sam, or Lucky the Leprechaun for cereals, Tony the Tiger. You don't see these as often because we've started to limit marketing to foods to kids. You can now drink water wherever you go. I remember a time where that wasn't the case. There are vending machines have changed as well. In schools, there are no longer, Coke products that aren't, sugar-free in schools or water, but vending machines also have to have the calorie counts of things. So if you notice, the next time you go into a vending machine, you have to go see how many calories is in anything that you buy from that before you purchase it. No longer do you have added sugars in beverages in schools. So when I was in high school, you get sweet tea at lunch. You can't do that anymore because that's full of added sugar. They had this thing called sweet cream or snow cream milk, which was literally just regular white milk with a ton of sugar added into it, and it was delicious, but it's not the greatest thing for the diet, especially of children. And finally, what we're going to see is the fact that now companies have to tell you how much added sugar is in their product. So on food labels, there now has to be a section telling you how much added sugar is there so that you know how much sugar they put in this product that wasn't naturally found there, just to add sweetness to encourage you to consume more of it. And so these are kind of dietary guidelines for Americans, what's specific to us. So one last thing I just want to point out is we have all this, and we've talked about eating a wide variety of foods and trying to, basically not eat too much of any one food. And so one thing to look at would be this portion size guide. It just kind of gives you an idea of what a portion is, like what's one portion that we should be eating. And so it gives you things like, think about a cup. If a serving size of something is a cup, think about the size of a baseball and how that would feel in your hand, or a half a cup, how a light bulb, how that feels in your hand. It's not practical for most of us to carry around our measuring cups each day. And so this is a way to kind of look at things and go about it. Something like a lean meat, so like chicken, you would want to eat something about the size of a deck of cards. So that's length, width, and depth. That would be considered about 3 ounces worth of lean meat like chicken, and as a serving size. But some of our serving sizes are way bigger than we think about. So French fries. A lot of people love French fries, and a serving size of French fries is typically about 10 French fries. This isn't your Chick-fil-A waffle fry, 10 French fries. It's your standard kind of like, think Wendy's style fry. Like 10 of those would be a serving size. And most of us eat more than that, and we just don't realize